It's not every day consulting makes it into the news, so when it does, we just have to make a video about it. So, what's actually happened? Well, it was recently announced that the strategy consulting firm BCG, Boston Consulting Group, have filed a lawsuit against the gaming retailer GameStop. Why? Well, they're trying to recoup $30 million worth of unpaid fees. 30 million! 30 million. If you're thinking, GameStop sounds familiar, but I can't think why, that would be because GameStop was a meme stock back in January 2021. The first question is, why would a company like GameStop want to hire BCG in the first place? Well, the fact is, they've had a bit of a rollercoaster journey. You might know them as one of the meme stocks that did really well in January of last year, but it's not always been the way for GameStop. In fact, back in 2019 and 2020, they were facing near bankruptcy. And of course, it's not unusual for a company who's facing a potentially fatal crisis to call in a strategy consulting firm like McKinsey or BCG. After all, BCG is one of the top strat consulting firms. So if you're in a bit of a pickle, well, there isn't really anybody better to call. Okay, so then where did it all go so wrong? There's two things. Firstly, GameStop is claiming that BCG didn't deliver on its contractual promises. What were those? Obviously, I can't find the exact wording in the contract because that won't be publicly available information. But I found something in an article, which link in the description, you can check it out too, which is a bit interesting. I'll read it exactly. It's claimed that the contract is structured so that BCG gets its fees relative to the projected profit improvements resulting from its, BCG's, work. So here's the thing. I don't work in strategy consulting, I work in technology consulting, so I can't comment on whether this is a normal way to phrase a strategy consulting contract, but it just strikes me that given there's so many things that can influence profitability, how a BCG intending to calculate the profit relative to the initiatives that they've recommended, and how are they intending to prove the causal relationship between the two? Now, I don't have any experience in this, so I can't answer this question, but it's one I would love to see the answer to. Because that wording, it just feels a bit wishy-washy. The second thing is that GameStop is claiming that BCG is overpriced. Well, here's the thing. BCG and McKinsey are the top, most expensive firms in the whole of consulting industry. And that's no secret. Surely, when you're going through the RFP and you're selecting BCG, you know this. At the time that you hire them, they are going to be expensive. Look, whether or not they're overpriced is a very subjective statement. But given that they keep accusing them of being overpriced, GameStop have never actually said what they think value really looks like. But now we come to the most curious bit of all. I'm going to read you something that's written in Bloomberg, and again, link in the description, see it for yourself. But I think these words are very interesting, and I'm going to read them to you exactly as they appear in the article. Under the management of the chief financial officer at the time, invoices went unpaid. Now, I think that's really interesting, and the most interesting word of all is the word went. Why? Because it's past tense. Charlie, that's obvious. What are you getting at? Let me explain. This sentence implies that there were multiple historic instances of GameStop not paying invoices either fully or on time. What this means is that somebody within BCG has approved for their consultants to do what's known as working at risk. This is when you work knowing that, for example, there's a high risk that you won't get paid for the work that you're doing, or for example, if a particular work order hasn't been signed off prior to the work starting, but you start anyway, it's what's known as working at risk, i.e. the risk is that you're not going to get paid. So the big question here for me is, who in BCG has A, approved for this work to go ahead at risk, when it implies that there's a pattern of a high risk of the invoices not being paid? And secondly, who has allowed this to accrue to the point of $30 million of outstanding fees? What was the rationale for that approval? Given that, let's be honest, unless you were into gaming prior to 2021, would you necessarily have heard of GameStop? I hadn't. If I'm perfectly honest, I didn't know about it till it was a meme stock. And I don't know, maybe I've been living under a rock and I'm the one who doesn't know about it. But it just strikes me that GameStop can't be such a key strategic client account for BCG that they were okay with approving $30 million worth of work to go unpaid and to carry on working anyway. I would be very interested to hear what BCG has to comment on this in the future, but for now, I guess we're just going to have to sit and watch and wait. For what it's worth, my personal prediction is that GameStop will have to pay at least 50% of what they owe to BCG. BCG is an absolute Goliath in the world of consulting. Can GameStop take them on and win? Only time will tell. But it's not often that consulting makes it to the media, so I will be watching this with bated breath. Hope you found this video interesting. Feel free to drop your predictions into the comments. I would love to know what you're thinking. This is a little bit different to the type of video that we normally make, but you know what? It was just too good an opportunity not to offer a comment. Of course, normal disclaimer in this scenario, all views my own, not affiliated with GameStop or with BCG. I'm just a curious consultant watching from the sidelines, sharing my thoughts on YouTube.